If your business is currently stuck, you run an agency, an online business, a service-based business, you've hit a plateau, and no matter what you do, you just can't seem to break through to the next level. I want you to join me for the next 30 to 45 minutes. We're really going to deep dive into this topic over here, and it will be one of the most important videos you watch for the year. I really look forward to those of you who do watch this in its entirety and actually take action um, and see results. I look forward to you guys hitting me up maybe in a couple months or in 12 months and letting me know that this was the video that helped you really break through to the next level. And if you're not at a point right now where you're struggling to break through to another level and you're actually currently growing, trust me, you will hit a plateau. And what I'm going to share with you today is going to help you when the time comes. Now, for context, the reason why this is already written out is because I spent 50 minutes recording this video already, but the microphone was not recording. So I'm re-recording now. But I'm just going to choose to keep everything I already wrote up here. It makes it easier. That way I can actually focus more and probably get more information in a shorter time frame. So you've already seen the word that's up here on the screen. That word is bottlenecks. This is the reason why your business is not growing. It's not because you're not working hard enough, you're not working long enough hours, you're not being productive enough, you're not talented enough. Although all these things are important, like great, if you can work hard, you should work hard. If you can be 100% productive, you should try to aim for that. If you can work longer hours, that's going to help too, right? But that's not really the reason why you're not breaking through to the next level, particularly when you find yourself in a position where you are doing the same, like if you have been working 50 hours a week and you've been growing and then you stop growing, it's not because you need to work another 10. Like working 50 hours a week created growth. So it's not that hard work that you're missing at this point. It's actually something else. It's actually something a lot more simpler, and a concept that I wish I had known earlier, really. And that is bottlenecks. So all we're going to focus on in this video is understanding what a bottleneck is in a business, identifying what bottlenecks are currently stopping you from growing, and then what you can do about relieving these bottlenecks and understand that under each main bottleneck, there are like sub bottlenecks or little bottlenecks that are contributing to the major one. And all of this is going to start to make sense very soon. So this is the word that I want you to focus on. This is the word I want you to be obsessed with, bottlenecks. Your job as a business owner is to identify bottlenecks and then get to work. And you should be spending the majority of your time, if not all of your time, on relieving your bottlenecks or telling the right people in your team to focus on relieving the bottleneck. This is all that you need to focus on. It's bottlenecks that is stopping you from growing. Now, what is a bottleneck? A bottleneck in layman's terms is the very thing that's actually stopping you from growing your business. So if we picture a bottle, right? Let's say we want to fill this up. We want to fill this up fast. This here is restricting the flow. It's restricting the flow to allow this to grow. So it's the thing that makes it very hard for you to keep growing your business. Now, the best way to identify your bottleneck is to ask yourself a simple question. What is stopping me currently from doubling my business in the next 30 days? What comes to mind when I ask this question? What is stopping you from doubling your business in the next 30 days? If you're currently at 10K per month, what is stopping you from getting to 20 grand per month in the next 30 days? If you're at 50,000 per month, what's stopping you from getting to $100,000 per month in the next 30 days? I want you to think about this. What comes to mind? What are the first things that come to mind? Now, when I ask myself that question, I've asked myself that question in the past, or even when I ask myself that question now, these are the things that come to mind for me. And so I'm going to share them with you. And I'm sure from this, you're going to get an enormous amount of ideas. Now, here's one thing I want to note, right? Just because I understand that bottlenecks is a reason that I'm not growing my business, it doesn't mean I don't have them. And it doesn't mean that when you relieve a bottleneck, you're not going to have another one. Bottlenecks are a constant in business. You are always going to have a bottleneck. The idea is not to get rid of bottlenecks or not have bottlenecks at all. The idea is actually just to be in a constant state of relieving bottlenecks, because when you relieve one, another one shows itself. And I'll explain that. So if I was to ask myself, or in the past or even now, or you would ask yourself, what is stopping you from growing your business in the next 30 days? What are the things that come to mind? Now, what comes to mind for me is number one, not enough new clients, right? So if we're currently at a revenue level, what would stop us from growing and doubling the business? Just not having enough new clients. You need new clients to generate more revenue, right? So not having enough new clients. Number two, resources are capped, right? Can your business actually, if you didn't have a problem with clients, if you had enough clients coming in and you had enough opportunity to double your business, could your business actually handle the growth? Right? Could you do double the amount of work next month, or are you capped from because of your time? Is your staff capped? Right? Are your resources currently capped? Can you actually handle double the amount of work? If you run a web design company and you're doing 25 grand per month, and you're doing, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 websites a month, could you actually turn around 14 to 15 websites per month in 30 days? Or would you need to hire someone? Or are you going to just have to work more hours? Like, what would stop you? Usually it's a resource issue that would stop people from doubling their business. It's not just clients. An example of this is someone I was actually mentoring, a very, very successful physiotherapist, completely booked out, doing multi six figures per year. So a physiotherapist that other physiotherapists go to for advice on how to get booked out themselves. But he came to me and said, man, I'm making good money. I have no shortage of clients, but I can't make more money because I take on these sessions myself. They're in 45-minute to 1 hour blocks, and I only have so much time a week. And the resource for him was his own time and his own energy. He was exhausted. He was telling me how tired he was from having to use his hand all day, every day. And so what he had was a resource issue. Didn't have a lack of clients. He had a resource issue, and the resources that were capped was his own time and his own energy. Okay, and we helped him break through his own this bottleneck, and I'll share with you how we relieve this bottleneck later in the video. Now, another reason, another big reason, a big culprit to why businesses cannot scale and double in the next 30 days is because you're not profitable at scale. So what happens, right? What happens is, let's say, for example, a web design company comes in. The person is doing the websites themselves, right? 3 grand for a website sounds awesome. 3 grand, smash that out in a week. I just made 3 grand in a week. Amazing. Let me do one a week. Now I'm doing 12 grand per month. Perfect. Now you're actually doing that. You're doing 12 grand per month. And then what happens is you go, all right, now in order for me to break through to the next level, I need to hire someone so that they can take more websites and I can take more time. I can spend more time on sales calls. So then you hire someone and you realize by the time you pay this person, right? Maybe the first person's okay, but then the second person and the third person, then you have to hire a manager to manage your web design team. You may have to hire a senior web design person who is going to review all the websites so you don't have to review them anymore. And what happens is down the line, the 3 grand that you were 3 grand that you were charging per website was probably making you 90% to 100% profit, and so it was reasonable to charge that much. But then at scale, it was maybe making you 10% or 20% by the time you paid everyone. Okay. That there is a classic example of not being profitable at scale. It happens as well with agencies who charge a retainer. When you think, I'm doing the ads management myself, so why not just charge this person $700 a month? Like it's better than nothing. You do that 700. Before you know it, you're on like 5, 6 grand a month. You're happy. Then you hire someone to try and take over these accounts, and you realize it's expensive to hire people, right? And so half your profit or more than half your profit goes. And then as you begin to scale, you realize you don't have a business that's set up to be profitable as you scale. You don't have enough margins in what it is that you are charging. Okay. So that there itself is a bottleneck, your profitability at scale. Another reason that would stop you from doubling and growing your business is company culture and your team. If you have experienced what it's like to have more than 5 full-time staff in your team, you would realize that, you know, when you just start out and it's just yourself, you don't have any staffing issues. It's just you. It's just you. You are doing all the work. You show up to work every day. You don't need anyone keeping you happy or anything like that. So everything gets done. It's awesome, right? But then you hire one person. Now that one person you hire is probably, you know, just as dedicated. They're maybe you rely on them a lot, so they show up for you. Everything is great, and you may not have problems with them. Now, I remember when I got to 5, 6, 7 staff, and we had a team in the office, things began to happen that I didn't experience before as a business owner. Things like people being sick, taking time off to go away, not wanting to come into the office because they didn't get along with another staff member, dealing with individual performance issues, and really needing to start to work on company culture, right? Now, for those of you who have, say, 5 or 6 staff and you're already experiencing problems, imagine doubling that headcount to 12. Or if you're at 12, imagine doubling it to 24. So typically, especially in businesses that have that rely a lot on talent, sometimes it's the reason you can't double is just because you don't have the right foundation set in place to scale your team, maintain good company culture. So the bottlenecks there are you have no proper set principles and values and mission statements, and you don't have a strong enough hiring process, onboarding process. You don't have the right cadence of meetings and support for your team. You don't know what you need to do to lead people properly. And this is usually a very, very big bottleneck. There are a lot of businesses that can get enough clients, that have no problem with hiring more people, that are set up for profit and scale, but the company and the team ends up being such a massive issue that becomes the bottleneck. Because, you know, if you're having so many issues with staff and maybe high churn rates, the chances of you wanting to go and keep hiring people where things are currently broken is probably very low. And then finally, a big one personally for me is knowledge. Knowledge is a massive, massive bottleneck. Just not knowing what to do could be the biggest bottleneck in your business. So I'll think back to times where I had maybe 3 full-time staff members, and I was asking myself, when do I hire my 4th person? Like at this point, I just hire when my team is stressed. When my team tells me, oh my God, I'm stressed, I can't keep up, I'm overwhelmed, that was my cue to hire someone because I was inexperienced. And that was the wrong way to do it. You know, I was able to grow my general marketing agency when I did web design, I did e-com, and I did lead generation to around that 80 to 100K a month mark. And I was just hiring people because my staff were telling me they were overwhelmed. Okay, now I need to go and bring someone else. I wasn't even paying it. I had no proper set system in place. I would never do that now. Never do that, right? Because I didn't know that was the bottleneck. I just didn't know. I didn't know what to do, right? At the time, I didn't know, like, for example, we were actually, you know, thinking back, so silly of us to do this. You know, we had, I don't know how many clients paying us 1,500 to 2 grand a month, maybe 40 clients plus, and majority of them were in lead gen, and we had some e-com clients and some web design. And at that time, lead gen became a bit hectic, right? Because we were churning clients, and some clients would get results, some we wouldn't. And it got so annoying, it got so hectic. I went to the shiny object, which was e-commerce at the time, because I thought I could charge higher retainers. Because I didn't know what I was doing, I didn't have the right guidance, wasn't reading the right books, I didn't have access to the right information. I actually pivoted my agency out of lead gen into e-commerce. And then 12 to 24 months later, I pivoted back out of e-commerce back into lead gen. Okay. So you could say I wasted time. You could say I actually had wasted 12 to 24 months trying to go all in on e-commerce when it was never really the right move. I gave up too early on lead gen because back when I was running the agency and we had 40 clients and we were dealing with lead quality issues, if I had known what I had known now, I would have fixed those problems like I fixed them now. So this is really worth me telling you because I just want to emphasize how important fixing the knowledge problem is. So back then, the number one complaint we got from our clients was lead quality. Lead quality, the quality of leads aren't great. Yeah, the quality of leads aren't fantastic. Lead quality was such a pain. My team was stressed. They were stressed me out. And then I was just like, oh my gosh. And then I took a look at some of our ecom clients, and it was so easy to judge whether we were doing a good job for them or not because, if they had a 5x return on ad spend, they wouldn't complain about lead quality because we were just generating sales, right? And then I decided to essentially pull the pin on the lead gen side of the business and went in fully into ecom. But if I had known, say for example, I had watched the video from Sam Ovens that I had recently watched that I watched where he says eat the complexities of your customers, right? Which in other words means if your customers are complaining about lead quality, fix that problem. Stop looking at yourself as just a one-dimensional marketing agency. If I had the right mentors around me, like a recent mentor, someone I met, um, he told me he was having this problem, and then he just started hiring internal sales staff to call and qualify. And that's what we ended up doing when we pivoted from back into lead gen. I learned number one to niche down. That's a big way you can win the lead gen game is to niche down. So you have one customer, one lead quality issue that you can focus obsessively on fixing, right? It's too hard to do it when you're doing lead gen for everyone. So that's the first thing I didn't know back then, right? If I had known, we would have just chosen our best clients, like the best industry, and just went all in on it. Secondly, eat the complexities. So we've now hired full-time sales staff that calls our leads for our clients. And the moment we started to do that, the results started increasing. We started booking more appointments. Our client satisfaction grew. Their success grew. They started closing more deals, and we had lower churn and lower dissatisfaction rates. Because I was thinking so one-dimensional. I thought to myself, I'm just a marketing company. I just generate leads, but I wish like there was no reason why 2 years ago I couldn't have just hired internal salespeople to start taking phone calls, but I didn't. And the reason why I didn't is because I lacked the knowledge. Okay, I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't have the information that I now have, and so do not underestimate this as a bottleneck. It can cause you to waste a lot of time and a lot of money. Like it costs a lot of time and a lot of money to pivot and make the wrong pivot. And I'm very frustrated at myself, to be honest, for doing it. But I didn't know what I know now. So it's okay, right? It's all part of the journey. But I want you to avoid it. Okay. So what I want to do now is I want to take a pause here. I want you to pause the video if you want, because this video is not going to be helpful for you unless you take action. I want you to pause the video if you want. Okay. I then want you to sit down and actually ask yourself, what is stopping me from growing my business in the next 30 days, doubling it or tripling it? Write those reasons down and then come back to this video. And what we're going to do is we're going to now dive into each of these bottlenecks, and I'm going to show you how to dissect them to figure out what are the sub bottlenecks within them that's contributing to the major one. Okay. Let's start with the first one, which is not enough clients. If your business currently has the bottleneck of not getting enough clients, right? Chances are you are operating more in a reactive state, okay? Which means, when I think back to when I had this problem, my issue was if I didn't get clients through referral or word of mouth, and I didn't get clients through my organic social media presence, I just didn't get clients. So I was in a reactive state, just waiting to see what happened. Some months I'd get people inquiring on my social media and DMing me directly. Some months I would have some referral partners I had built send me some clients. Sometimes people would just find us on Google and inquire, and that was it. We were constantly reactive. And that was because we had a limited amount of traffic channels, okay? So I thought to myself, I can't really get more clients on my social media unless I like create way more content. I can't force the people who refer to us to refer me more. And I can't control how many people find us on Google right now unless I like try to like rank higher. So what can I do to immediately start getting more clients? And the simple answer was to relieve that bottleneck, I have to now create a new traffic channel of getting clients. And the traffic channel that I learned, that I chose was Facebook and Instagram ads, right? The reason why I like Facebook and Instagram ads is because it's a traffic channel that you can put money into and instantly start to get in front of, more clients, more potential clients, and attract them. Now, another way of looking at this is it could have been Facebook and Instagram ads, it could have been Google ads, it could have been cold calls, it could have been cold emails, it could have been cold DMs, it could have been I don't know, it could have been creating more content. I could have done more. Say, for example, if I was really good at content, I could have created more content and gotten more people inquiring from my organic social media. That will come to us taking a look at what we currently have and trying to increase the inputs. Sorry, the inputs to then increase the output. So the way to look at that is before you can take in the step, for example, of finding a new traffic channel, you can go, okay, if I get work from word of mouth and referrals, what can I do to get more referrals? Can I encourage my current referrers to refer me by giving them a bigger incentive? Okay, if I get people inquiring on my social media, can I post, twice as much on socials and engage with twice as many people to then lead to twice as many inquiries? So that could be you relieving the bottleneck. But for me, when I think about it, when I really began to break through was when I decided to launch a different and new, an additional traffic channel, which for me was Facebook and Instagram ads. Okay. Now, when I launched the Facebook and Instagram ads, now I didn't have the bottleneck of just sitting around waiting. I could actually get in front of my clients and start spending money to then get inquiries. And then I faced my next bottleneck, which was my CPL was too high. Okay. At one point, our cost per lead was around $100 to $150, which meant if we spent $1,000, we would get only 10 leads. And if we spent $2,000, we would get, 20 leads. And sometimes it would be less than that too. We would go up to that $150 mark. And there would be months where we may spend 2 to 5K in ad spend, excuse me, and not even get a single client. And so that 2 to 5 grand would just get flushed down the drain. So what we did is we went, all right, we've got our traffic channel. Our CPL's too high at the moment. It's $100 to 150. That is my current bottleneck. My cost per lead is too high. What can I do to bring my cost per lead down? Because think about it like bottleneck wise again. If my cost per lead is high, that means I've got really limited inflow of leads. But if I can decrease my cost per lead, I've essentially relieved the bottleneck here, right? And now I can get way more leads. I can spend, if I could get my cost per lead from $100, where I'd spend 2 grand to get 20 inquiries, and I reduce that, hypothetically speaking, to $10, now I can get 10 times the amount of inquiries. I can spend 2 grand and get 200 inquiries. So now I'm speaking to 200 more people, which will then relieve that bottleneck. So what I did was I would take a look and go, okay, this is my current bottleneck. What can I do to fix this? And some of the things that we did was we niched down, right? So we found a niche. Second thing, call out. We would call out the client that we actually wanted to speak to. So we found the niche, the client that the type of exact client avatar we wanted to speak to, and we called them out in the ad offer. So we gave them a no-brainer offer and guarantee. And if you want to do work around offers and guarantees, I highly recommend you read $100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozi. It's another really good book called The 16 Word Sales Letter, but $100 Million Offers is all you need. But you give this particular niched customer who you've just called out a guarantee that is a no-brainer for them, right? And then you show case studies, so results, and then a clear CTA, call to action. Actually tell them, get them curious to learn more about what you do and tell them to inquire and book a call. Okay. What that did for us is at times it would bring our CPL down to $15 to $25. Sorry, one more major one. I actually want to really emphasize this. Major one was creative. Okay. So this is a major one. Now, before we've had times where I've had a creative running. The cost per lead starts to creep up. Maybe there's some ad fatigue, gets to like $75, $80. I then change the creative. I get it edited even nicer. We stand out compared to the rest of the market. And then our CPL takes a massive dip down, even though we haven't changed our offer. So creative is massive too. So these are all the things that we could play with that would fix our CPL issue. And we did when we found our niche and we did our call out and we had a no-brainer offer and we showcased some case studies and results in our video. We had a clear call to action and we had a really nice creative, right? A video creative that then brought our CPL down from $100 to $150 to $15 to $25. And so we were getting now 4 to 5 more inquiries for the same amount of spend. Perfect. Now I've got my traffic channel. I've got my CPL under control. Now I've relieved that bottleneck. So now I'm getting inquiries, right? Now, the way I run my business, and yours might be different. So the way I run my business is when someone inquires and they're a lead, we essentially get their name, number, and email. But we ultimately want them to go to a landing page and book in a call to have a sales call with us, right? When they book in a Zoom call, that's what shows really high intent. The more sales calls we have, the more people we can get to book, the better we're doing, because it means they're actually choosing a day and time. They're putting their information. They're now putting in their information for the second time. They probably would have went to our landing page, maybe even watched our VSL video. So they're much warmer. They're much more higher quality. And that's what we want. If we have a funnel that doesn't have people booking in appointments, then they're just leads by themselves. It ends up being an absolute disaster. We do not get good conversions from that. So after fixing our lead flow issue, we started getting a ton more leads. But what actually happened is we realized we're getting a low appointment booking percentage. So every 10 leads that would come in, only 10% of people would book in a call. So something was going wrong. And then we fixed that bottleneck, okay? Brainstorm with the team, trusted the right people to work on this. They launched a new landing page, adjusted the funnel. They identified where there might be friction in our funnel. So for example, our booking form was a little bit too pre-qualifying. It was being very, very strict, asking them a billion questions. We relieved that a little bit. We put our calendar on the main page rather than having them go to another page. We just took a look at where there might be friction that would make someone not book a call, and we started to relieve them. And before you know it, our appointments to lead ratio skyrocketed. I would see the Slack channel, it'd be like new lead, new lead, new lead, new lead, new lead, new lead after like 9, and then it'd be like new lead booking. And we'd see all these new leads come in and there'd be no bookings, and it would be very frustrating. And then the moment these changes started happening, it would be like new lead booking, new lead booking, new lead booking, new lead, new lead, new lead booking. And I was like, all right, great. So we fixed that. Now my calendar is starting to get filled out. It's starting to look nice. We've got a whole bunch of people who are actually interested in jumping on a 45-minute call to learn more about what it is that we do. We have now relieved this bottleneck, okay? So now I've got people on my calendar. What else? What's the next bottleneck, right? The next bottleneck could be show rate. So if I have a whole bunch of people booking, how many people actually show up to the meeting, right? And this is very, very, very classic. A classic scenario is people book and they just literally don't show, especially if you don't speak to them, you don't send them confirmation messages, you don't give them a call, you don't send them reminders. All of these things can contribute to a very low show rate. And that low show rate means that your overall results are going to, be significantly hurt. So let's say we take this scenario and you run a B2C company. So with our clients, our renovation clients, we do the exact same thing for them, but we book them in-house quotes. So the idea is we get a lead. How many of those leads actually book a quote request? And then out of those leads who book a quote request, how many of them actually qualify, and what percentage of those meetings eventually get canceled or that our clients actually show up to? usually when people are booking for you to give them a quote in their home, the cancellation rates of those meetings are much less, as opposed to when they have to show up to a clinic, or like if you have people coming into your center. For example, one of the people I mentor owns a tutoring center, and the way his funnel works is he gets leads, and then he speaks to the leads and he books them in for an in-person appointment at their tutoring center, and then the salesperson there converts them to get their child tutoring, right? Now, what we have to pay attention to is what percentage of people who actually confirm a booking actually end up showing up to the appointment. We need to know those percentages, because that's a bottleneck. That is a current bottleneck as well. It's not just the cost per lead, it's not the creatives. That's the bottleneck, is actually having people show up. So, we know we want like a 60 to 70% show rate. If I have 10 people booked into my calendar, I want at least 6 or 7 people to show up to the meeting. And I know we're in like a nice, healthy territory. And obviously, you may not know your stats, but you'll learn those stats over time. Or a really good thing that you can do is just speak to someone who's doing what you're doing at a higher level and figure out what their stats are, and you can work backwards from there. That's essentially what I did to find out, what reasonable stats are. So what percentage of people who are booking actually show and are qualified? And then we start to relieve the bottleneck here. So if people aren't showing, all right, are they receiving a confirmation message? Are they reconfirming? Are we sending them things leading up to their meeting? How quickly are we giving them a call to confirm their appointment? Are we messaging them the same day and asking for a confirmation? Did we maybe, make it easy for them to get access to the Zoom link? Sometimes you'd be surprised. People just don't show up to meeting because, they booked a week in advance and they go to the email, I can't find the Zoom link. So they're just like, whatever, right? They don't value that meeting as much as you value it. To them, they just booked another call. Who cares if they miss it or not, right? Are we getting the customer actually add that meeting in their calendar as well? All of these things can lead to increase or decrease show rates. Qualification criteria. So, there are a percentage of those leads and people who book appointments that our appointment setters will disqualify and cancel meetings with. So if we're noticing a high disqualification rate, it's time to start really paying attention and reviewing calls. And then, there's been countless times where I've told my team, like, hey guys, I really appreciate you trying to be very strict with who actually, you book in my calendar. But after reviewing so-and-so's call, I think I could have taken that call. Like, this guy seemed okay, right? Let's make an exception here. And you realize, wow, your team's disqualifying people a little bit too highly. That's a bottleneck. Moving on from that, then ad spend becomes a bottleneck, right? So let's say my show rates are fine, my cost per leads are fine, people are booking appointments. Just like recently with my team, I say, look at my calendar, I'm like, look, all of our metrics look okay, but I want my calendar even more full. I want more appointments booked. What can we do? And then the answer sometimes is just spend more money, right? And so that's our bottleneck. We want to spend more money. Gotta get rid of this. We get rid of Siri. Thanks, Siri. So that was our bottleneck. We just need to start spending more money. And then after people actually we're spending, my calendar's full, all the metrics look good, then the next bottleneck is close rate. How many of those people who actually attend the meeting am I closing? Do I have a solid close rate? Am I at 30 to 40% plus on cold traffic, which is what I personally aim for? I don't expect that from, closers that I hire, but I definitely expect that from myself as the founder taking calls, and you should have a higher expectation there too. And at the moment, these are the two things that we're really focused on. Oh, this is the main one for me, really. My team's worrying about the rest. I'm really working on how can I make sure that I have a higher close rate. And within that, what it comes down to is what can we do to get the customer more warmed up prior to the call, right? Because I had a few calls the other week where people came in there with like a bit defensive, and someone said to me, I don't know anything about you guys. What do you guys do? Right. And I was like, whoa, this seems like it's like a cold call. Like, I've just called you, like you inquired to come and book a meeting with me. I didn't reach out to you guys. Why are you treating this like a cold call? Like, I'm here to try to sell you something. You needed my help. And you've come to me. But that was because we didn't warm them up enough. So then told my team, if someone watches some case studies from us and someone has watched because I find this all the time. Whenever someone's actually watched case studies, like if I speak to someone, they jump in a call and I notice they're a bit more friendly, a bit more warm. I always ask them, hey, have you checked out our content? And they always say, yeah, man, I watched your entire video and I've seen some of your case studies. And the people who come who are cold, I can tell right away when they come in the call and they're very cold, they're giving me very short answers. I'll be like, hey man, have you watched our video, our case studies at all? And they'll be like, nah, man, I haven't had a chance. It's just it's so simple. Like those people are much harder to close than the others. So let's find a strategic way to get almost 100% of the people actually attend the meeting with me to watch some videos before they go in, because it makes them so much warmer and so much more likely to close. Then we take a look at the sales process. What sales process am I following? How am I handling objections? What objections are popping up, and what can I do to have objectionless closes? So if I notice, for example, that people have objections like money, time, they're ready to get started, they want to start in 3 months, whatever it is, I'll address all those objections at the beginning so that I have an objectionless close by the time I get to that end of the meeting, right? All of these things, even the offer that we have, like our guarantee, experiment with different guarantees. You start to see, if you put enough reps in, what works and what doesn't. Reviewing sales calls when you've won. Like I recently did this, it was massive. I reviewed some sales. I was having, a bit of trouble. I think I went like 0 for 4 in my last 4 sales calls. And then I reviewed a sales call where I closed the person on the spot. And I watched it and I'm like, wow, I was in a different energy, and I did this and I brought this up. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I brought that up. I didn't do that with the last 4 people. Oh, it's interesting that I asked this question. I didn't ask this question with the last 4 people. So then you start to realize, what to do and what not to do, just from, really starting to pay close attention to this. Now, when I take a look at bottlenecks, I try not to spread myself too thin. I try to approaching one thing at a time, right? So right now I've kind of gotten through the list, and now here's what I'm focused on: close rate, right? I know after this, once my close rate gets to a specific point, and we're going to be going, okay, now we want to take on more clients. The next bottleneck is going to be to bring on, my next bottleneck will be my calendar. I can't have more than X amount of bookings in my calendar. I'm only one person. So we have to hire another person, and then we need to train them, right? And then we need to remove me to hire the next person. And then we need people to train the sales staff and manage them. And then that becomes the next bottleneck. It's a constant state of just chasing bottlenecks. So when we think about the next bottleneck, resources, let's say your resources are capped. Typically, if your resources are capped, it's usually most of the time, it's because you are not using your time effectively and your team is not using their time effectively. And so what you would do is a time audit. And you realize that you might be, spending 2 hours a day working on small changes on your website, or posting on organically on your social media, or editing videos, or responding to emails, or doing unnecessary admin work, or sitting in unnecessary meetings. All of these things that you do with your time is a waste, right? And it is currently capping you from growing more. If you could relieve 50% of your time, if you could become 50% more efficient just by getting rid of doing all the unnecessary stuff, right? Like making small changes on your website, big culprit. I fell into that trap. Absolute waste of time to do that, especially if you're below $1 million a year. You don't need to do that. All you need to focus on is getting more customers, more appointments, and closing more deals. That's it, right? And you should do that through your primary, traffic source, not making small adjustments. So if you're spending time on fixing your website and in unnecessary meetings, and you're doing admin work and creating posts and doing video editing and even working on client accounts and dealing with client communications, all of these things here are a waste of time. And that's where you can start to fix this bottleneck. Before you decide to hire more people, you can look internally. I've done this plenty of times. I'll have my team start to get overwhelmed. And in the past, I made the mistake of just hiring people, but then my overhead became ridiculous. And I ended up at a point where I was not very profitable anymore, right? On the other hand, now when my team's overwhelmed, I go, all right, guys, time audit. I want an analysis of everything that you are doing, and I'm going to find where the inefficiencies are. And you'll just realize so many inefficiencies from doing an exercise like that for yourself and for your team. Make your team 50% more efficient. Now you can take on double the amount of work without having to hire anyone else, just by getting them to eliminate doing certain things, or restructuring who's responsible for what, right? Or making a strategic hire rather than hiring an account manager or a salesperson that may cost you 10 grand a month, or an account manager. You can make one account manager already paying 10 grand a month way more efficient, 50% more efficient by hiring them a VA for $500 or $1,000 a month to do the 50% of their admin work that they're doing. So you just start getting really creative with this stuff. Another big culprit for resources being capped is just not having systems and processes. And a big way you can relieve that bottleneck is just by niching down and offering one specific service. Paul Gordon talks about this. He says, if you're between the 0 to 100K mark, right, a month mark, all you need to be doing is following the 3 S's, right? One specific customer, right, who has one specific problem that you offer one specific solution. This allows you to create what he calls the conveyor belt, right? So that you can take on more clients without getting bottlenecked, because you have the same client coming in, their onboarding is the same, what you do for them is the same, launching them is the same, offering the services the same, deliverables the same, and you can create really, really efficient processes and systems. So just by niching down and focusing on one specific service, that could be enough to fix your resource problem, right? Putting in systems and processes in place could be what you need. So I'll give you an example. One of our clients, he recently hired a VA. I convinced him to hire a VA to do all his quoting and invoicing. And he told me that the VA has actually saved him 25 hours a week. And now he's spending more time attending quotes. And I was like, great, that's awesome. But I'm like, by the way, man, how do you train your VA? And he said, well, the way I train my VA is I literally put her up on Zoom and I just spent all day with her, just training her. I did like 3 full days all day and I showed her everything. Now, this is where people go wrong. He did that activity. Great. He got her trained. Now she's in. Awesome. But what if she leaves? Because if she leaves, then he's going to have to do the exact same thing with the next person. That's inefficient. But if he had processes and systems, for example, with us, our appointment setters, there is like 5 hours of like course content that they need to go through, internal training and course content that essentially has someone come in. And by the time they're done, I don't even need to talk to them. A week after they have come into the team, a week after, they know everything. They understand the script, who our customers are, why we do what we do, how to use our softwares, how to use our technology, where to find what, who is who in the business, right? What's our mission? They go through training. So I don't need to sit there and have any of my team constantly train them and be there and actually dedicate time. No, everything is already pre-recorded. And when you are training staff, you record those calls or you record those sessions because they become training material for the next person. So you don't have to go through the same thing that you went through with them. So typically, you might find a lot of inefficiencies in your systems and processes. And then the next one is you needing to hire or delegate. Now, I prefer to always look to delegate before I look to hire. And I'll give you an example, a really great example. And this was back a few years ago, 4-hour work week. And this is back when maybe, I don't know, we were at like 30K-ish per month, right? I can't remember how long ago this was, but we're at the 30K-ish per month. And we may have had maybe 15 to 20 clients, and I had 2 ad specialists. And the way my agency was structured was I would bring on clients, the ad specialists would set up and launch their campaigns, but the client's communication, the update on results, their complaints, all their issues came through me. Maybe I needed to do that to understand how to be a good account manager at the beginning, but I kept on doing that and I did it for too long. Then I read this book called The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, and he pretty much changed the way I look at delegation and time management. And when I read this book, I looked at my team and I said, what can I immediately hand off that wouldn't cost me any extra money? And what I realized is clients would call me, ask me for an update and complain to me about their results. I would then go and pass that information on to the ad specialist. The ad specialist would tell me what he's working on, and then I would pass it on to the client. And so what I did is I just removed myself from that equation. I told the ad specialist, you guys aren't ad specialists anymore. You're account managers. And what you do is you run ads for your clients, but it's your responsibility to speak and communicate with them and then retain them. Then I set up a retention structure. I train them on how to be a good account managers, and I created incentives for those who can retain at a high percentage, right? So if you could retain at higher than 95%, you got a massive bonus, and then you worked your way down. And what that did was it completely removed me from the equation. I saved probably 10 to 15 hours a week, and I did not have to hire any more people, right? And it wasn't costing my ad specialists more time because they were already having that conversation with me. I just made things more efficient by properly delegating. And that relieved the bottleneck, or a massive bottleneck, which was me, because now I have more time to actually spend in sales calls and work on actually growing the business. There's just a really great story there for you. Now, very quickly, we'll go through the remainders here. Not profitable at scale. This tends to come down to a few factors. So number one, churn rate. Making sure that you have really good client retention, because churn becomes a big problem at scale. Number two, pricing. So when you start out, you price, and the only cost you think about is your time and maybe one staff member. But at scale, you may then have to hire a manager to manage your team. So if you have, one appointment setter, one salesperson, great, no problem. But if you have 5 of them, now you've got the expense of those 5, but then you're probably gonna have to hire one person, a full time, pay them more than you're paying all these other guys. And then they need to manage them. So they're not in a directly revenue generating role. And this is where margins start getting eaten up. And so you have to actually work on adjusting your prices to be profitable as you scale. Company culture and team, establishing, your principles, your values, your mission, making sure the expectations are set very clear, being ruthless with making sure that people in the team who aren't going to uphold your principles and values do not stay within the team, because one bad apple can really spoil the bunch. And then finally, knowledge, right? Knowledge, whatever it is that you are currently lacking, you need to be actively taking steps to get that information that you don't have. Right now, I understand how to sell and close because I invested an enormous amount of time and I spent a lot of money getting other people to teach me how to close people over Zoom from specifically cold traffic, people who weren't referred to us and weren't word of mouth, right? So that was great. That allowed me to close so many deals, and I'm so glad I did that. And if I didn't do that, I would have probably thought that paid ads was a waste of money, right? And I would have missed out on a lot. I've learned recently how to manage my team. I was struggling a little bit with leadership. Someone recommended to me Patrick Lencioni. I read his books on leadership, transformed the way that I think about leadership and company culture. Now where I'm at is thinking about how do I grow, how do I best structure an offer that is like completely unique to a market. How do you find a new product market fit? If you're trying to bring something to the market that hasn't existed before, because now I don't have like a standard agency. I'm actually trying to innovate. How do I know what a good product market fit is? What steps can I take to find a good product market fit, a good market offer, right? So now I'm operating in unknown territory. And so I spend a lot of time watching people like Layla Hormozi. She talks about this a lot. But even I've been recently watching podcasts on people from like those startups like Y Incubator and things like that. They talk a lot about product market fit, particularly those, startups that go and raise millions of dollars. That's the word that they throw around all the time. We're working towards finding a product market fit, or we found a product market fit. That's what I'm currently focused on at the moment. I didn't have that information, so I go and I take steps to find it. So what can you do to get knowledge, right? The first thing you can do is books. Books is like someone's, 20 years of hyper specific experience all in a book. You can go YouTube videos, YouTube. This is me just giving you low cost ways and cheap ways to do this. You can start buying courses as well, low cost courses. And then you can start moving to mentorships. Find someone who has done what you've done, and then just work with them one-on-one, and they can give you advice specifically to your needs. That's what happens when I mentor. I always mentor a handful of people at a time as I work on growing my own company. And I look at them and I'm like, man, the amount of time that I've just saved you and the amount of money that you have saved is ridiculous, because if you had kept on doing what you were doing for the next 12 to 24 months, you would have just constantly been running around in circles. And it would have been very frustrating. So mentorships, and by the way, I spent a lot of money on reaching out, paying mentors, paying people to do one-on-one calls with. I always get the biggest breakthroughs when I do that. And then you've got masterminds after that as well, where you actually get around people in your industry all operating at a high level, and you're just networking with your peers, and they all share what they're working on and what's working and what isn't working. So you should be in a constant state of trying to get knowledge. I'll tell you one thing before I end this video here. So on the topic of knowledge, recently I had like my own mental breakthrough where I thought to myself, I need to make really good decisions. That's what I said to myself. I said, my responsibility in the business, my main responsibility is to make sure I make the right decisions. Are we in the right niche? Are we offering the right service? Do we have the right price point? Do we have the right offer? When do we make our next hire? What's our next step? Think strategically, right? I need to make the right decisions. Then I thought to myself, wait, I don't need to make the right decisions. I need to have people in my corner who have already made the right decisions, so they can just tell me what to do. And that was such a massive breakthrough, because having the pressure of making the right decision is very difficult. Are we in the right niche is a very, very difficult question to answer for yourself, because you just don't know. You have not been in this long enough to know, right? But if someone else is experiencing or has experienced the exact same problems you're experiencing, and can come to you and say, this is the reason why you're having these problems, and then tell you exactly what to do to fix it, because they fixed it, they can save you. They can tell you what the right decision is. You don't have to put the pressure on yourself to make that right decision. And again, the majority of my pivots have come on the back of me listening to people who are further along than me, because they have a much better perspective. They've been through the ringer. Okay. Just like how, as you're listening to this video, you can tell I've probably been through what you're currently going through, and I've made it on the other side. And now you're probably going to start making some adjustments as a result, right? This is how I go about identifying what is the reason or the reasons why my business is not growing. It comes down to bottlenecks. Identify bottlenecks, figure out what you're going to focus on first, identify the sub bottlenecks within them, start with your blinkers on, relentlessly trying to relieve them. And when you do that, just naturally things begin to work out. You don't even have to focus obsessively on getting more clients. You just have to relieve the bottlenecks, and then you just get more clients. So you focus on doing the right things, and then that outcome that you want will eventually come. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. I know it was a long one. Please, if you found this valuable, you implement some of this stuff, and you know, you produce awesome results, please share it in the comments below. I'm really keen to hear from you. Share this video with someone that you want to see succeed as well, who you think it would be beneficial for. Make sure to follow me on Instagram. I post stories up there. And that's pretty much it. Like and subscribe, as they say. And I'll see you guys in the next video.